Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AfterShock Happy Hour and Live Sale. I am your host and the communications specialist here at AfterShock Comics, RuthAnn Thompson. We have a jam-packed show for you today. I'm glad to see some of you already in the chat already. Creed, Leonard, and Nathan, good to see you all. So not only are we going to have Adam Glass and Aidan Glass, the co-creators of Lollipop Kids, we're going to have an incredible live sale with some exclusives, not only from Adam Glass, but also We Live and Chicken Devil. But first up, I'm so excited to chat with our Aftershock Ambassador of the Month, and he is our ambassador for Las Vegas, the incredible David Harris. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's so great to have you on the show. You're actually a fairly new addition to our team, but doing an incredible job. We brought you in October of 2021. How are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's different work. It's good to interact with different stores, seeing how different people manage business and stuff like that. So I enjoy it.
Awesome. And how did you become an Aftershock fan?
Oh, We Live. I just started reading We Live. I liked the idea of listening to like a soundtrack while I was reading. And then I don't know, from there, just kept picking up different titles.
Yeah, it's that one thing that just kind of hooks you and brings you in. And another one of our ambassadors, Mitch Gerwitz, in the comments wanted to say hello to you, David.
Hi, going.
And then, so for you, what are the shops that you cover in your area in Las Vegas?
Oh man, I should probably have them memorized, but I have Torpedo Comics, which I think they're one of the biggest comic book shops in the country, from my understanding. I mean, do very big business. I have Cosmic Comics, Maximum Comics, Alternate Reality, Velvet Underground, and I'm probably forgetting one. No, that might be it. That's five. Yeah, no, we're good. Those are them.
Well, that's awesome. And so you get to go to these shops once a month and bring them the promotional materials that we provide to you guys. So far, what has been your favorite? Because we also do the Aftershock Ambassador variants. What's been your favorite of those so far?
Oh, ooh, that's tough. Actually, no, it's not tough. I think the Maniac of New York, the Bronx and Burning one that you guys did with that red cover, it's like a blood red. I think it just popped. Cover really popped. It was vibrant. That one was very nice.
Fantastic. And then for you, what are your top picks for this month from Aftershock Comics?
Ugh, I don't know top picks. I always tell the stores, and that might be why I like them. I shouldn't say that's probably why they like me, because I don't really know a lot of the times. I don't follow production schedules like that. I will just broadly see the things that I'm reading. Chicken Devil's unbelievable. I think that's probably one of the best stories out there. I'm super pumped for the new We Live that's going to come out next month, March, right? Yeah, it should come out March. And then Maniac's been good. I enjoy it. So and then I've been reading everything, but those are probably the big ones for me. I really want to see what happens with Maniac next. I want to know what's happening with Chicken Devil. Oh, Campisi is fun too. So there's some story. One, Land of the Living Gods, I think is the title, right?
Yep, came out last week.
Yeah, I read that one. Really liked the idea. I could see a lot of growth in that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to get better about that, but those are the things that I've been keeping an eye on. Is We Live is going to be a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And giving a shout out to all the people in the chat. We have Leonard, who wanted to say hello to you too, and Matt Peterson, who just wanted to stop in. Hopefully you're still here, Matt. Good to see you. And F8 Photo wanted to say, David, what's up? Well, thank you again. And for anybody who's in the Long Island, New York area, we are actually still looking for an ambassador for that area. So make sure you check our website and apply right away so we can get you, just like David here, out and about with all the awesome promotional materials that you get to keep as well and do all that. So David, thank you again so much for joining.
Oh, no problem. Everybody have a great day.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey everybody, it is Rue from the AfterShock Epicenter live stream. I just want to remind you that there are some incredible titles that came out for yesterday's new comic book day, like Lion and the Eagle, #1, Maniac of New York, The Bronx is Burning, #3, and the Lollipop Kids graphic novel Seismic Press Edition. And speaking of that incredible title, we have both the authors right here to speak to. Hello, awesome folks, and welcome back to the happy hour and live sale. Next up, I am so excited to have the incredible duo that's behind the new Seismic Press reprint of Lollipop Kids and so much more. There's so much more to discuss, but let's bring in Adam and Aidan Glass. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing?
We're great. How are you?
So good. So excited to have you on today. It's been so wonderful working with you both over since 2018. And now I get to have you both here and ask all the questions I've always wanted to ask about Lollipop Kids. So, and obviously, everybody in the chat, if you have any questions for Adam or Aidan, please chat away and I will read them off to them. So, I'm actually going to start with you, Aidan, since we did have a lovely interview with you with Seismic Press. It's actually printed in the back of this book. But what I want to know from you is what we ask all of our creatives here on the Happy Hour show of what was your first comic book that you remember picking up and being like, ooh, I kind of want to do this?
That's a great question because I found my love actually with the 90s Batman the Animated Series that would play every Saturday, and my dad would make me bacon and eggs, and I'd wake up and I'd watch that and then Scooby-Doo after. So, I mean, that's where I learned to love superheroes, comics, and all that stuff. And so I think from there, it was just like crazy Batman, Legos, everything all the time. Video games. Oh my God, all those Arkham games. I love them. I played them religiously. I would probably say the first comic I ever fully read was actually my dad's Luke Cage comic. And yeah, it was pretty good.
But I love what you said. I think it's really important is generational, right? Like we grew up, Ruth, and we had, comic books, and this generation found it in different ways. They found it through entertainment. And it doesn't mean that they're not as good of fans or as big of fans or all that stuff, but it's interesting how it's evolved.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes there's gatekeeping that happens with comic books. It's like, well, you didn't read the original comic books from issue. It's like, no, you love Batman. And also that was an amazing series. So absolutely.
When Aidan was little, we used to do the villain game, who could name as many villains. And he would do it. He'd come to comic conventions and do it against Jeff Johns. And
I'd beat Jim Lee, Jeff Johns. Yeah. I mean, the list goes on.
And they couldn't believe how deep he can go, but he would be able to go really deep because, again, he would watch all the episodes and all the video games, and sometimes those are highlighted more, the villains, than they would in a regular, comic book.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what I love about Lollipop Kids, and you actually mentioned it in your interview with Seismic Press, is that the story of Lollipop Kids was actually created by all of you and your family as a bedtime story. So how old were you when that kind of collaboration started?
Eight,
yeah, 7, 8. I mean the most that I think when we would tell them as bedtime stories, kind of like a way to catch up on how our day was almost. And we would bring things in our real life, and it's even in the comic actually. And
yeah, like me growing up in New York City and my experience, and I would tell him stories about that. He'd tell me things that were going on with him and his things. So this is a real mashup of both our lives, that we sort of put into a story. And the story would just keep growing and growing and growing. And we were driving in the car one day, and I would think I was actually talking to Lee Kramer. And I got off the phone with him, and Aidan's like, why don't we do Lollipop Kids as a graphic novel? And I was like, you know what? That's a great idea, buddy. And we called them and obviously made it happen and created it. But it all came from this really heartfelt family sort of place of us telling stories. We're all storytellers in our family, one way or another.
Yeah, and you really feel that with this story. So for any of those who haven't picked the story up, you must. But basically, it's based around the idea that when immigrants came to the U.S. Hundreds of years ago, they didn't just bring their dreams and their hope for the new world, but they actually brought monsters to encase in the center of New Amsterdam, which happened to be Central Park. So for you, why was Central Park so important? And there is so much history, like all of the titles you do here at AfterShock, that there's just so much beautiful history just littered in these storylines. So why was it so important for it to be in Central Park for both of you?
Well, our families always love Central Park. It's a big place for us. When we go to the city, we always keep sure that we're going to spend some time in the park. It's like one of the greatest parks in the whole world. The idea that you can get lost in the middle of the biggest, city in the world and literally just get lost in these parks where you don't even hear or see anything is just absolutely amazing. By the way, historically planned that way too. And, when I was growing up as a kid, we would go to the meadow, which is, Sheep's Meadow in the city, and everybody would lay blankets. If you've never been there, it's wild. I say it's like a beach with no water or sand. And it was sort of like, if you're young, it's where you went and you hung out and you played Frisbee or some football and maybe some other things that we won't talk about as a young person. But it was always just a meeting spot for sort of the youth, in the city, and you'd meet people and everything like that. And I always loved that idea. So, also the park has so much history. And it was like, so, which we included in there, all the little sort of details of the park, more statues, like, that the Egyptian needle is there, like this idea that there's literally this gift that was given to us from Egypt, which is 4,000 years old in there, all the statues, everything. It's just, you could get lost in that park for days and just keep learning more and more stuff. And you said something earlier, which I think is important, is, it's an immigrant story. My grandmother, my family, our family originally came from Russia. So I know the old world. I had a connection to it growing up as a kid, and I always tell my kids about it. It's funny how it only takes a few generations, to sort of forget where you came from. But it's, I don't want to forget that. And I think also in this country now, unfortunately, from a political standpoint, a lot of immigrants were getting a bad rap, and we forget the immigrants are the ones who built this country. So who else in our story would be the heroes? The immigrants,
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, Aidan, what is your favorite Central Park memory, and did it end up somewhere in the storyline?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, just ice skating. I mean, every winter. I mean, New York is probably the best place to be for Christmas. I love it. It's my favorite.
Yeah,
There's nowhere more magical or whimsical than New York City and Christmas. I had the pleasure of living there for like 5 years, which is hardly anything, but it was just magical for the wintertime. You're right.
Yeah, and you and your sister, we'd always go to the city and try to go around Christmas time, and going to the rink there and ice skating is also one of my best memories of you when I was taller than you.
It's so great. And Aiden's the lead character has some similarity as well. As I was reading it the first time, I was actually so happy that the main character is dyslexic, and this actually ends up being one of his superpowers. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because I suffer from I forget what level it's called, but I grew up with that as well, and it's always been like something that's not really talked about.
No, there are a few hundred different actually types of dyslexia you can actually have. And growing up, I came to a point in my learning education. I was like, I don't know how to read. Like, I want to know how to read, and I was so confused. And I found out dyslexia, and I think in the beginning I was down on myself about it. But I think as I got older and I learned to love to read, actually, I kind of like found ways to like use it in my own life as a superpower, and some of the advantages I think in life that I see that I have. I think I definitely, I don't know, I think people who have dyslexia just have a more beautiful brain, and I think think it's really awesome.
Yeah, you think out of the box.
Yeah,
think about it. Spielberg has dyslexia. All the great people that have dyslexia. CEO of Apple, what's his name, who passed away, Steve Jobs, had dyslexia. It's like so many, and it's because you think out of the box. The one thing Aidan's leaving out is like when Aidan was a little boy, he could put together a 1,000-piece, Lego set without directions, because that's the way his brain functioned. So, and of course you learn to read, and everything is sort of, it got better and better for you, but you had to teach yourself all these tricks. And so when we were turning around thinking of this story, of course, Nick, our lead character, who, by the way, is named after a friend of ours, Nick Motley.
Wonderful. I was actually going to ask if there was any other tie-ins. That's lovely.
Our daughter's best friend who lives in New York City, Nick Motley. So like, I always heard his name and I kept saying, Nick, I'm putting that in a story somewhere. It's such a great name, Nick Motley. And Nick is a great guy. So so that's how that all came about.
So great. And we have some great comments here from everybody watching. Forrest Bates says, I've got this pre-ordered and can't wait for it to show up. That's awesome. And then Melissa Danielle asks, Adam and Aidan, what characters do you most relate to in Lollipop Kids and why?
That's great. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I think Nick, because his relationship with his sister is in some aspects similar to me and my sisters. In the beginning, Nick and his sister share a room. Actually, me and my sister did share a room for almost 5 years. And I think the undying love and protection they have for each other and always being there, and the bond they have to create through just through their life and their parent relationship. And I just think my dad actually saw that, and I think he really helped me develop at such a young age, like a great story about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love Expo. I think Expo is my alter ego.
Yes, I love Expo so much.
Troll who just like, just love that he's sort of like grumpy and New Yorker. He's the real New Yorker,
Oh, absolutely.
There forever. He's like that. I just think he's such a fun character. And I always think that you have to have some gallows humor in these kind of things. Like it's something I definitely learned doing Supernatural all those years was that, to find that gallows humor. Because I think when we're scared, we do try to sort of do something to hide that or cover it, and we do it usually through humor.
Oh, absolutely. And I love the fact that, yes, this is a book geared more for YA audiences, but it definitely doesn't read like one. Like there's a lot of fear. There's even a little bit of light cursing, so it's always difficult when you have creators who are like, try to dumb down a story for kids versus like, they live in the same world we do. So why would you do that?
Well, that was a lot of Aidan. Aidan would say that to me all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to be a little more authentic, I guess you could say. Just because, like, I don't know, there's times where, like growing up where you hear these words and you see these things and it's inevitable to happen. And so like, why not put it in a book surrounded around a story that's more kid friendly?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so great. Like you really feel the familial connection throughout this entire book. So for each of you, so Aidan, I'll pose this question to you first. What was your biggest takeaway and something you learned working on this book with your dad?
Not only how much fun it is, there also is a lot of work, but it's all worth it. Because like now this is in the world, like somebody in 100 years could find this book in like a vintage store and be like, who's Aidan Glass? I don't know, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think being able to, I said this in the original intro to the book, what a gift, to be able to do this with my son and have this adventure, that we did in creating this story together. And, and again, to your point, like it lives on, right? It lives on. And one day your children can look at it, and have that story. And in it is a lot about our family. And there's a lot about, our history that's in there. So yeah, it's a really beautiful gift to have to do and everything. And he did learn it was hard work. There were times, he was also much younger when we wrote it. So, you're what, 13, 14?
14.
14 when we did this. So, like from then to now, like, cause there were definitely nights I'm like, we got to write. And he's like, okay. But then once he get it in and start talking about it, he gets super excited.
Yeah, that's when the work becomes really fun.
Yeah. And also to learn, like, he's got that gift. He's a natural storyteller, which is really, awesome. I mean, we both, my wife, me and I always, sort of encouraged in our children to both be, that play to their strengths and their arts and all that stuff. And our daughter Josephine is a singer, and Aidan is definitely an actor and a creative writer and also a musician. So
that is so great. And speaking on that, Aidan, you one of the interview questions was about, what would you suggest to up and coming writers and creators? And you're like, just keep drawing and writing till your fingers fall off. So with that type of inspirational advice, do you think you want to work in comic books?
I would definitely enjoy writing another comic book one day. I don't know if I'd want that to be my life's work, but I definitely think to have another, I guess, outlet to kind of share creativity. I would love to do another comic. I mean, we always are talking about ideas. So
yeah, it's a lot of what we do in the car when we drive. We're like, he'll pitch me something, I pitch him, and they're everything. They're short films, they're short stories. He's been writing poetry, which is amazing. He read a little Jim Morrison poetry, and I think it inspired him to get into some more poetry. So yeah, it's like it's always some kind of artistic story conversation, creative conversation happening.
Yeah, and it's so great. The last time I spoke to you, Adam, on our conversation, you were just held back from traveling to be able to film for your new Netflix show, but now it's filmed. The first season is out there. How does that feel?
Oh, it feels amazing. Yeah, it's like, just like, listen, I always say this, the best part of writing a comic book is when the art starts coming in, because you're like, oh my God, it's gone from words to, it's like Christmas morning when you get those. And I feel the same way about the show. It's like you talked about it, you thought about it for so long. I always say I'm a baker. I'm just baking it. And then when it comes out of the oven, you sort of get to give it to everybody. So In From the Cold has been, lifelong like dream. So I'm really happy it's finally happening.
That's so great. Oh, actually, so F8 Photo here on Twitch just said, just bought the Lollipop on Kindle, like just now, just so you could read it. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And actually, speaking on artwork, Aidan, what was it like for you for the first time to, as a comic book now writer, to work with Diego Yapor and like see your words come to life on the page?
Oh yeah, I mean, tremendously talented. It was really cool. I don't know. I think we wanted to like not do it like the art. We wanted it to kind of like pop a little bit. And I think Drawing New York did it so perfectly.
Yeah,
it's so good.
What's one of the beauties too is Diego, like his first language is in English and our first language is in Spanish. And so like, it was funny how we communicated. Like we found a way to communicate through the art and through the story, which was really awesome. Like we talk about the universal sort of thing. And like, I've always believed that about graphic novels. It is a universal language, that everyone can talk to and respect and love and sort of read. It's like, I remember, in fact, meeting people in my life when I was just in Spain, and I couldn't believe how many of the same stories. We all grew up reading Chris Claremont, X-Men. It didn't matter what country you came from, what I'm saying? So it was like, or we would talk about, X-Force, or, we talk about Marv Wolfman and George Perez's Teen Titans, Judas Contract. It was like, it was like, oh my God, it's like, didn't matter where you came from in the world, comic books would sort of unite you, and we all shared those stories.
Yeah, so since this has been a bedtime story since you were a kid, did the artwork like really capture the imagination and the world that you had created for yourself?
What do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Diego, he's just so talented. Actually, for me, it surpassed what I thought in my head. Like when I turned around and the art started coming in, I was just so blown away. I just think he's so talented, and I think you're going to see a lot more of him out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We loved working with him, and I believe we have a few more projects with him as well, because yeah, he does great work. For both of you, again, what is your biggest, what's the thing that you love the most about this book that somebody might not have noticed, like some little detail or something that was like really important to you, and you're like, we have to put this in here even if nobody notices it?
Yeah.
The way that there's a little part in the beginning, and Nick sees a street lamp, and the numbers actually can tell you where you are in the city. And so that's like something that like you have to put in.
Yeah, because we used to do it. We used to look at the numbers in the park when you were a little boy. Yeah. And I was like, we have to put that in there, because that is true in Central Park. And it would be part of my answer too, is the same as yours. The history, the real history, everything that's in there outside of the immigrants brought their monsters, or maybe they did, is true. It's historically true. Like, so we really wanted to take real history and put it into this fictional account. And one of those things is exactly what you're talking about. All the locations, all the stories that are told in there about those locations, like that's all real. I mean, our hope is you read this book and you go to Central Park and you see things that you never saw before, and you realize, oh my God, that's in the book, that's there. Oh my God, that's there. It's like you start to sort of put it all together and realize that it's all really part of the experience of going to Central Park.
Yeah. And so since, I mean, Adam, you've worked on all this stuff, but Aidan, I almost feel like you've been on this train with Adam this whole time, of between Supernatural, Cold Case, like all the different TV shows and movies and all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of a two-parter. Who would you like to see cast in the Lollipop Kids if this was made into, a TV show or movie? And what is it that you like about having Lollipop Kids be a comic book versus a film or TV show?
Who do you think casting was? I mean, while we were writing it, we kept thinking of Will Smith's son. Was originally sort of who,
Oh yeah, he's probably too old now, but
well
absolutely.
now, but but when we were writing it, that's Jaden kept thinking about
Yeah.
and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, just like Stranger Things, this would probably be about finding a group of kids that, are new and fresh, less than finding like, celebrity kids. I think it's like you want to find that next generation. And look, the story was written from a true place. A lot of these people, Big Red is a real person in our life, but in real life, he's a 6'4", 50-something-year-old Jewish guy. And he's a 9-year-old girl. But Chicken Legs was a guy I grew up with, and I grew up with a Mason. But the one thing about New York that's so beautiful and true, and it's like, I feel like sometimes you see these stories and it feels forced. It is like a United Nations. Like when I was growing up, it was United Colors of Benetton, but it was like, there's like, everybody's there. It's just such an unbelievable, beautiful mosaic, New York City. And that really sort of reflected in this. And then I think from a comic book perspective, there's no budget, right? I mean, you could just write whatever you want. Like we had a big monster throwdown in the middle. Yeah, we could blow up buildings. You could do everything. It's like you
have endless possibilities with a comic. And you just also have more fun with it, and you have like more like creative freedom, I feel.
Yeah. And you're not thinking about the budget. You're not thinking about all these things. You're just like, let's just write the biggest kick-ass story we can and like have fun. And that's what kept exciting us. Like, it's not like, if like we're writing this as a movie, TV show, I'd be like, we can't blow up, the Empire State Building. It's like, in a comic book, you can.
So JD Smith was curious if one of you draws, the other writes. No, these are actually the two co-creators and writers of Lollipop Kids, and it was actually Diego Yapor who was the artist on this. So highly suggested. It just had a reprint for our Seismic Press YA imprint just yesterday, Wednesday. Wow, time is flying by. So for any of you that have not been to your local comic book shop yet, absolutely get there ASAP before this sells out, because we actually sold out of the original printing of this. So it was really exciting to be able to. How does that feel for you, Aidan, to have your first comic book, the trades sell out, and we had to do a reprint?
Yeah, I didn't know it sold out. That's cool. That's awesome.
I try to keep his head, like, I don't want to get too big.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
Oh no.
That's pretty cool. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really cool. Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
That's so wonderful. So is there any other stories that you feel like you could continue with the Lollipop Kids and this world?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. We even talked about like, what are other places and worlds? Like, actually, there's about a 3 to 4 sort of like arc, which would in a, 5 to 6 books a piece that we could play out. There's more stories because you want to see where Nick goes, because Nick, I don't want to give anything away, but Nick starts at the bottom and ends up the leader of the group by the end. And so what's his story? How does he lead now? And what happens to all the people and, from the story moving forward? Because, it's part of the rules, but, some people are no longer in the group and what happens to their lives. So there's a lot of stories telling other monsters that will come to the forefront and that battle of, sort of going forward with it. So yeah, a ton of stories to tell.
Yeah, and we actually have some more comments here. The title is named Mr. Midnight, but it looks like this is Anne, and wanted to say congratulations, Adam and Aidan. Rocky Roman, looking forward to reading Lollipop Kids.
Thank you, Anne. And hey, Rocky. Hey, Roman. That's awesome.
That's so great. Just double checking if there's any other comments here, but it sounds like everybody is just really excited to either read this now. So, and especially F8 Photo, who just bought it on Kindle, says it's so cool when a comic book using real history as a part of a story reminds us that the truth is out there. Can you tell that one of my favorite parts of Lollipop Kids is actually how they got the name Lollipop Kids? So does one of you want to tell the story?
Yeah, no. The idea was that they're going through the park and they would suck on, and they would Duke Ellington, and they would suck on lollipops, and just to sort of keep them up because they're running,
they were cheap.
They're cheap, and they're also
because this was during the Depression, so these poor kids didn't have much food.
And Duke Ellington, who used to live right across the street from Central Park, and like I've read all his biographies and spent a lot of time over there dreaming and coming up with some of the greatest compositions, sees them and goes, who are those Lollipop Kids? Because they all have the lollipops in their mouth. But, we also, the Lollipop Kids is famously known from Wizard of Oz, like the Lollipop Kids are part of the, the Lollipop Guild, so that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier, but basically all of your titles here with us at AfterShock Comics, you have such a beautiful history that you want to like wrap in to all of this. So for you, why is that important to you? And kind of just, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that because it's fascinating.
Well, I love history. I'm a big history fan. So like maybe Rough Riders and all that stuff. And you know, I think as one of the people who said earlier, you know, the truth is out there, you know, and those stories are amazing in their own. I don't think we appreciate enough what came before us sometimes. And we forget, you know, that we are standing on the shoulders of the people who came before us. You know, I saw something and I cannot remember the young woman's name, but she's one of the new leads on Star Trek. And I remember she was on The View and she turned to Whoopi Goldberg and said, "You are my accomplishment. I am your accomplishment." You know, and I love that sort of that idea of like us standing on the shoulders of everybody who came before us, and the history and those stories are absolutely amazing. And I just want to include them because I think sometimes maybe it'll lead you to like actually going and finding the true story and reading about it, you know, through these things. Again, like Central Park, if you read our book and you literally walked around Central Park with our book, you'd be like, "Oh my God, there's that, there's that. Oh, I never saw that before." It's like, it's all there.
Oh yeah, and even Nick mentions that. It's like, I never noticed how beautiful it is here. And she's like, yep, like absolutely. And for you, Aidan, why did it expand the world for you anymore? How did that kind of affect the magic of this world, of this, you know, bedtime story for you to actually have all this deep rooted history within it?
I think my dad's love for history was ingrained in me. I mean,
Mhm.
I passed high school with all A pluses in history. It's the only class I did. And so I think my love for history was something that we both kind of agreed on in the beginning of this, of like, it's kind of like a giant, like, scavenger hunt almost. And it's like little clues throughout, like our favorite little things and nods to like our life. And yeah, no, I think history had to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that maybe someday you would like to do another comic book, but where are we going to see you next? What is your next journey and adventure for you, Aidan?
That's a great question.
He just graduated high school.
I'm on a
So.
Yeah.
gap year. I'm on a gap year right now, and I'm figuring it out. And I think you'll see me in some acting stuff.
That is
Definitely.
awesome. It's always the best choice to take a year off and really decide. It's you know, it's one of those things that it's your future. You got to take it where you want. So that's awesome.
He went
Yes.
to Ireland and spent part of the GAP program over there. So he was over there for 3 months and he just got
Fun.
back. Okay, yeah, just got back. And I think it was quite an adventure. Talk about a place of great stories and
Oh
storytelling.
yeah, and history. Was there anything from Ireland specifically that you just love so much and can't stop talking about?
I went to the Book of Kells like a dozen times. I mean, it is insane.
Do you know what it is, Ruth? Do you know what the Book of Kells is?
I do. Yeah, actually, my family's from Northern Ireland, and I got the chance to go to Northern Ireland at least. But yeah. So tell us all about your experience there.
Oh, okay. So the Book of Kells is a giant, not only, it's also in Trinity College, which is in the middle of Dublin. And basically, it's not only just a giant library with thousands of hours of reading, it also has the first piece of religious literature. And it is just so stunning because it's been on this earth longer than any of us.
It's like it's like a library out of Harry Potter.
Exactly. And it's so cool and it's so peaceful. And yeah, no, that was just the history behind it too. And like learning all about the different towns. And there's a great story about a dolphin in a town called Dingle that took us 10 hours to get to. But
It's so great.
And
Oh,
maybe that's the
actually,
next graphic novel.
yeah,
It's the dolphin.
yeah.
Dolphin of Dingle.
There we go. You heard it here,
Yeah.
folks. Right here now. It's going to be the next one. Oh, and then we actually got a question from Joe Brown, which I can actually answer. But he says, "What's up, Adam, Aidan, and RuthAnn? Is Lollipops available in comic book stores in London?" Speaking of the UK, yes, it absolutely is. And if the reprint for Seismic Press isn't in your shop now, it will be by next Wednesday because, you know, there's still this pandemic thing going on. It's a little difficult for things to ship and travel, so all that kind of fun stuff. Oh yeah, JD Smith says, "Wow, spoiler alert! Now I don't have to go to Ireland." So you just made it so everybody knows just how magical it is. And for you, Adam, so you just had your new Netflix TV show launch, In From the Cold. We have the first season out. What is up next for you that you can talk about, you know, without spoiling too much?
It's well, that's always the thing. I'm writing another pilot for Netflix called Grave Danger. We'll see what happens with it. It's just, it's always what we do. I always say, you finish something and you have to start all over again. So I'm doing that. I'm looking at different projects. Yeah, there are things that will come out in the press soon. Some stuff with AfterShock that is happening too, that, we've been lucky enough to sort of team up together and sort of take into film and television. So a lot of good stuff cooking.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Adam has done some incredible work with us here at AfterShock Comics. We have Rough Riders, Normals, obviously Lollipop Kids. He was a co-creator on Mary Shelley Monster Hunter as well. And we're going to have all of those available in the live sale after this as well. And of course, if anybody else has any other questions, I see mostly not questions here in the chat, but just how amazing you both are. And just want to say, I love how a kid who has dyslexia lives in literature and is a superhero, because yeah, a lot of us kids who grew up with it, we definitely felt like it was an oddity and not treated quite great. So it's so wonderful to have our main character, basically that is his superpower.
100%. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like again, like the idea is like whatever makes you different, it's the X-Men, it goes right back to it, is actually your superpower, right? We're all mutants.
Yes, in our own way. We have our own little X gene. Oh, I do have a question from one of our ambassadors, Rudy Vela. Says, Aidan, while working with your father, did you find it to be difficult to insert your vision or stand your ground on something you felt would work best? Because he says, when I was younger, while working with siblings on projects, it was hard for all of us to be assertive with our own ideas.
Yes and no. There was definitely some words my dad told me not to put in the book that I would say. And that was about it. I just think it was, yeah, that.
Well, and you just said to me recently, you said, next time we do this, I feel because I'm older now, I could even have more input. I think I would always bounce the story off of him, and we would talk about it creatively, and I'd write it and ask him for notes, and he'd give me the notes on it, and I think like sitting together on the computer is the next step in the evolution of our writing together. Yeah.
And so this is a question for both of you as well. What is the biggest takeaway that you want people to have from this title?
Well, for me, there is no story without Aidan. This was Aidan's idea, and Aidan was the one who turned around and sort of, birthed this and kept bringing it up and kept wanting it to evolve. And, again, like to tell a story where not only does the lead character, like we said, have dyslexia, which is something that affects a lot of kids in this world, and find that it's his superpower, but also that the power in kids, the power in sort of being, a certain age where everything's still possible, and that's a big part of our story, because at 18, they forget, who and what they were. So this idea of what, we say life doesn't begin to your 18, but that's not true. Your life starts really literally from the day you're born. So telling the story about these awesome, and that was the other thing that, like, when I was growing up, I loved all the Spielberg movies, but I didn't identify. Those weren't me and my friends. Me and my friends were running around through the streets in New York. So we weren't the Goonies, what I'm saying, as much as I love that movie. So also having something that sort of reflects my childhood and sort of like, where's our story? Where's our adventure story? Why do these always take place in the suburbs? Why don't they ever take place in the inner city? So that was something for me.
Yeah, no, I think also the idea of my generation and writing, having some of that, like my dad's watching me, like who I am, and he's writing that also into it, and I'm also giving him input, like, no, don't say that, say this.
Yeah.
I think there's some, yeah,
no, you're an amazing editor. You gave so many great notes about sort of like, oh, say it this way, Dad, or like, oh my God, no kids don't talk like that. You're always very much into that, which I was so glad to have.
He doesn't know our lingo, so sometimes it'd be a little difficult. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you always have to have that person who's been in the field and knows, what actually kids talk about, or, such and such as experiences.
Yeah, the best resource possible. Yeah.
Now, Aidan, you said you just graduated high school. Are you 18? Did you forget everything? How does it feel to be on the other side of 18 now?
Well, I am 3 weeks away from turning 18.
Oh my goodness! I'm glad I got you on the show now before you forgot everything about Lollipop Kids. Whew, dodge that bullet.
I know. I'm so scared. And yeah, no, I'm 3 weeks away and I'm so excited.
So great. So I don't know if you're on social media, Aidan, but are you on social media? Is there anywhere that people can follow you to see all your new adventures?
Yes, they can. It's at glass_cosmos. Actually, you'll realize one of our characters' name is Cosmo. It's a name I wish I had. I wish my name was Cosmo, but it's Aidan. I'm not very active on social media. Sorry, everyone. I kind of hate social media, but
the one kid of your
Right, we
generation.
found him. He's there. Got it. Nice. Oh, and a funny quote from JD Smith says, "Come on, Dad. The young kids no longer say dandy."
that's true.
And yeah, what? No, really? But it's so cool.
Yeah.
And for you, Adam Glass, where can everybody follow you so we can find out all this awesome news about all these Netflix shows and new AfterShock titles coming out?
Yeah, exactly. I have on Twitter, I'm Adam Glass 44 on my Twitter handle. And then on Instagram, which I only started to go on last year to follow my kids, which I wish I didn't do now. It's Adam Ian Glass, which is my middle name. So it's Adam, ADAMIAN, and then Glass, GLASS.
Wonderful. Well, I cannot thank you both enough for coming on to the happy hour today to talk about Lollipop Kids. It's such an honor to have you both here. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. No, really, thank you. It's awesome.
Well, you know, I do this every time we're on, Ruth, but I really mean it. I think it's so critical to have people like you in our business. And it's so important because you are not just a fan, you're somebody who loves the business and you're so good at what you do. And you're out there promoting and keeping this business going and alive. And we thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, thank you again. I teared up near the first time you said that. Now it's got me again. Thank you. And we do have so many of your amazing comics coming up for the live sale. We have some ash cans from Normals. We have even a metal cover from Rough Riders, which I don't know if you've seen these beautiful metal covers in person, but so for all of those who haven't picked up any of Rough Riders or any of the other titles from Adam Glass, you're going to get a chance right after this brief break. And I just thank you again so much. And I look forward to the next time that I can see you both in person.
Thank you, RuthAnn.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Rue from the AfterShock Epicenter one more time to remind you that we have an Epicenter every single Tuesday at 12 p.m. PSD, 3 p.m. EST to talk about all the latest titles coming out. And this next week, we'll be talking about the titles My Date with Monsters, #4, Cross to Bear, #4, which is actually the finale, and The Heathens, #4. So I will see you there next Tuesday. And now let's get to that live sale. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We have finished the interview and now it is time for the world famous live sale. So I'm going to quickly go through what all is available for today's show. And then as soon as I finish with the last item, we'll go live so that way you can add everything into your cart all at once. So first up, we have the Rough Riders metal covers. So we only have 5 of these, and these are $75 each. These are very, very exclusive. We only printed about 100 of these. So definitely want to get these while they're hot. And if you haven't seen them in person, they are gorgeous. Then we have Normals, which is another one of Adam Glass's title. This is the #1 ash can, and we only have 10 of these, but we're only selling them for $10 each. So this is a great collector's item for any of you Adam Glass fans and Normal fans. Moving on to some other titles, we have Chicken Devil metal cover, another gorgeous one that is very, very exclusive. We only have 10 of those available at $75 each. These metal covers were only at conventions usually, so this is going to be the only other way you can get a hold of them. Speaking of Chicken Devil, we have the Chicken Devil mask cover, 9.8 graded, and we only have 5 of these, but we're slashing the prices down to only $50 for these beautiful graded books. Next up, we have the hardcover of Rough Riders. Usually it's $50. We're going to bring it down to $40 for this show for the next 24 hours. And we only have 20 of these available. If you haven't read Rough Riders, so good. I'll describe it a little bit more after I finish up with the rest of the list. And speaking of Lollipop Kids, we actually have 2 exclusive covers from 2018. We have Lollipop Kids #1 New York Comic Con 2018 exclusive. We only have 10 of those available at $10 each. Then we have the Lollipop Kids #1 Baltimore Comic Con 2018 exclusive, 10 of those at only $10 each. And last but not least, the much anticipated second volume that'll be coming out. We have We Live #1. They're the mask covers A through D. So we have 4 of the masks. We only have 25 of each of them. And these were C2E2 2021 exclusives, and we're selling them for only $20 each. So this is the only other place that you could have picked up these gorgeous mask covers. And now that I have just finished describing all of these, let's open up the sale. So we'll go live with the sale. So click on that link. You'll be able to buy up all of these incredible books, and I will go through them all one more time, one by one, for anybody that's joining now or wants a little bit more of description. So we have starting off with the Rough Riders metal covers. So these are absolutely beautiful covers. If you haven't seen these metal covers in person, they are incredibly shiny. The colors are incredible. They're actually a thicker metal than I was anticipating. Absolutely gorgeous. And if you haven't seen these conventions, I cannot suggest them enough. It's just, they're beautiful. And it's the comic book, so you can read them anyways. We have the Normals #1 Ash Can. And this is a beautiful story. I want to say beautiful story. This is a kind of an intense story about a family, yet again, kind of locking into the family aspect of suddenly waking up to realize that they have been robots this whole time. So I don't want to spoil anything more than that, but this ash can is wonderful. This is actually something that we kind of discovered in the archives while Joe was at the warehouse only this last week, so really fun on that. And then speaking on metal covers, I'll say it, this is actually my favorite metal cover that we did just because of the way the colors pop for Chicken Devil #1 metal. We only have 10 of these for $75 each. But they are just, it's so beautiful. I was so glad to be able to steal one after San Diego Comic-Con special edition, actually give it to Brian Buccellato, who is the creator of this. It was great to be able to surprise him with that little gift. And with Chicken Mask, we have the 9.8 graded books, only 5 of those available at $50. And I don't know if you guys read Chicken Devil. It's been one of my favorite comic books this year, and the ending and twist is so good. And it's not spoiling anything, it's coming back. So it has the perfect ending for the next volume of that book to be coming out as well. And then back to Adam Glass titles, we have the hardcover for Rough Riders. So this includes all 3 of the trade paperbacks, so all 15 comic books. And this is a really fun story. If you don't know about Theodore Roosevelt, as you know, Adam Glass is a huge history fan. So Theodore Roosevelt actually did have a group of people called the Rough Riders that would do like the dirty work for him because he was such a cowboy back then. So this is a slight twist on the tale where we actually have famous people in history, kind of very League of Extraordinary Gentlemen type, who come together to fight what they think is the Cuban crisis, but there's a little bit of a sci-fi element wrapped in that as well. There might be aliens, just saying. Then we have back to Lollipop Kids. We have 2 exclusives. We have the Lollipop Kids #1 New York Comic Con 2018 exclusive, 10 of those at $10. And then we have the Lollipop Kids #1 Baltimore Comic Con 2018 exclusives, 10 of those at $10. And it's always so funny talking about these exclusives from like the before times, because it was like, man, remember when we could just like go to a con and it was fine? And like, wow, 2018, it feels like so vintage now, even though it was only 4 years ago. And last but not least, because this is such a huge title, we even had David Harris talking about this is how he got hooked onto AfterShock Comics. We Live #1. We have 4 different covers, A, B, C, and D. These are the mass cover exclusives that we had at C2E2, just this past C2E2 in December of 2021. And we don't have many left. We only have 25 of each, and we're selling it for only $20 each. And this sale does continue for the next 24 hours since we went live with the sale. So If anybody else you know is looking for these comic books, send them our way, because in the next 24 hours there could still be some of these left. I don't know. There's not much left of a lot of these. But and that I think concludes our live sale. So I can't thank you all enough for joining. We're going to have another one on March 10th, but make sure that you hit that subscription, hit that notification bell so that you can see as soon as we're live with this show, as well as our Epicenter every Tuesday. And we are going to be bringing in some new shows for you coming up, which is very exciting. So thank you all so much for joining, being a part of the AfterShock family. Make sure you stay safe out there. Wash your hands, wear your masks, keep your distance, and only read dangerously. We'll see you next time. Thank you all so much for joining this week's Happy Hour. Make sure to add to your calendar that the next Happy Hour is going to be on March 10th with the incredible Garth Ennis. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we will see you next time.